Today we are talking with Dan Zeitlin he's a policy director with the Employment Security Department. If you have any questions, please drop them into the Q&A and we will get them asked on air. But first we're going to turn this over to Julia Gordon. She will speak for a couple minutes before we get started.
Great. Thank you, Lisa, and welcome everyone today. I'm Julia Gordon. I'm your Director of State Government Affairs for the Hospitality Association. As Lisa mentioned, we're going to be talking primarily about unemployment insurance rates today and the relief that was contained in the bill that just passed, and how you can engage in some of the programs that were contained in that policy. Also want to make sure that you all are aware that our team is currently focusing on how to provide the same sort of relief for 2022 rates. We're actively engaged in those conversations that are circling around the legislature right now for this legislative session, and we'll hope to have additional relief measures to you all regarding 2022 rates. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan. And Dan, why don't you introduce your team that's on the call today?
Sure. Thank you, Julia, and thanks for having me. My name is Dan Zeitlin, and I'm the Employment System Policy Director here at the Employment Security Department. I'm going to go through a few slides here of a presentation. It's a presentation that we sent over to Julia and Lisa to send out to all of you, so you'll have it on hand whenever needed. I'm joined by Denise Craig, who heads up our UI tax division, and her team are here to help answer any questions that you might have. And we want this mainly to be a dialogue and opportunity to ask questions. So the presentation will be rather brief. I should say that I think, as many of you are aware, Julia represents the Hospitality Association on our Unemployment Insurance Advisory Committee, a body that I chair, and she has certainly done an excellent job representing your interests, and I and the rest of ESD certainly appreciate the magnitude of the challenge that the hospitality industry has faced, really a challenge unlike no other during this pandemic. And we've had good conversations in that committee around tax issues, which ultimately translated, as Julia mentioned, into legislation that was passed on a bipartisan basis and signed by the governor, providing relief for this year. And as Julia mentioned, the legislature is still in session and continues to look at ways to potentially provide more relief in 2022 as well. So the governor signed Senate Bill 5061 on February 8th, which brought unemployment tax relief to all Washingtonians in 2021. The bill reduces the flat social tax from 1.22% to 0.50% in 2021, 0.75% in 2022, and until it reaches 0.90% in 2025. The social tax, I think, as many of you know, is a key component of your UI tax. It captures the socialized tax. Again, it's otherwise capped at 1.22. That's what it would have been in 2021. That's what it would have been in 2022. This bill lowers that. The bill also suspends the solvency tax. So this is a tax that would otherwise be levied if on September 30th of any given year we see the trust fund can't pay 7 months of benefits, which would have been the case in this period that the bill covers, 2021 through 2025. Suspending that tax prevents a 0.2% increase on your UI taxes. And then it non-charged all benefits paid during the stay home, stay healthy order from March 22nd to May 30th. So your experience rate tax, which is calculated based on your experience, the amount of benefits paid to your employees, that rate was notably lowered by the waiving of the benefit charges during this period. So the impact of the bill was that it prevented a projected 921 million employer tax increases in 2021 and 1.7 billion during this 5-year window. The average UI tax rate was projected to go up to 1.88% taxable wages in 2021. It is instead at 1.06%. That relief of benefit charging from the Stay Home, Stay Healthy order saves $1.2 billion to employers. Ultimately, the average experience tax rate was 0.86 in 2020. It's projected to go up to 0.97 in 2021, and instead will be lower on average to 0.75 of taxable wages in 2021. I do want to note this is on average. Of course, all employers have a different history, a different experience. Your experience tax rate is calculated looking back 4 years. So your 2021 bill encompasses 4 years of the pandemic and 44 months pre-pandemic. Obviously, as we move along into 2022 and 2023, and the 4 years captured in those tax years include more of the pandemic, there's more experience rate charging involved. Hence, to Julia's point, a desire to further work on that issue for 2022. We thought we'd walk through an example tax rate notice. So in December, all of you received a notice that was based on the law and the math at the time to calculate your UI tax rates. So as you can see, this is an example of an employer whose tax rate would have been 2.69%. You can see that along the top of 56,500. You can see on the left taxable wages, and then the notice breaks down the different components of the tax. So this company was facing a 1.54% experience rate tax based on the experience they had had the previous 4 years, a social cost rate of 1.12%, for an unemployment insurance tax rate of 2.66%. All employers also pay an employment administrative fund tax of 0.03%. This is funding that supplements the federal funds we get to serve unemployment claimants. And as you can see, if you move down the notice, this employer was going to be in rate class 14. So you've got an employer here, 2.69% tax, rate class 14 in December. SB 5061 is passed. This employer's tax rate is lowered to 0.74. You can see the experience rate due to that benefit relief charging is down to 0.43%. The social cost rate, which was 1.12, is down to 1.28 because that cap was lowered from 1.22 to 0.50. They dropped to rate class 5. So again, significant relief with that change in law. 5061 also enhanced the voluntary contributions program. So this is a program that allows employers to reimburse the state, ESD, the trust fund, for benefits paid up front, which reduces the benefit charging in their experience tax rate over time. So if a business has, let's say there were $10,000 in benefit charges to the business, and they're able to pay $10,000 through this program, that's a payment up front that leads to a lower tax rate over time and less payments over the 4-year window to follow. This bill, SB 5061, did a few things to further incentivize use of the program. Number one, it removed a 10% surcharge that had previously existed. Number two, it opened the program to businesses that move 8 rate classes. It was previously 12, and allows businesses to buy down a minimum of 2 rather than 4 rate classes. This program was previously set up in such a way that employers had to apply by February 15th. That deadline was extended to the end of March, so the clock is ticking, but there's still a little time here. And we've got experts on this program on the line with me today, so we're happy to answer any questions you all might have about the program. For those businesses that still qualify for this program, again, those have jumped 8 rate classes, they received their tax notice. So they received an original tax notice in December. All businesses received a revised notice in February, and those businesses that have still, even after the relief, jumped 8 rate classes received a third notice with the voluntary contributions plan insert, including a link to our website, esd.wa.gov/VCP, to learn more about the program. This is a bit on shared work. I think as folks on the phone are aware, shared work is a great program for businesses, for workers, for the community. It allows employers to reduce work schedules, keep those skilled employees on the job, and have those reduced hours covered through unemployment benefits. With regard to charging for the program, the federal government has funded shared work benefits essentially since the start of the crisis, beginning with the CARES Act that was passed and signed into law in March of 2020. However, our state statute has a provision in it specifically for charging employers. So the governor issued an emergency proclamation so that employers would not be charged for these benefits that were being paid for by the federal government. Governor's emergency proclamations are good for 30 days, and they need to be extended by bipartisan, bicameral leadership in our legislature. That continued to occur on an ongoing basis through the first week in January, and then that proclamation was allowed to lapse. 5061 essentially reinstates it with a provision that says if the federal government is fully financing shared work benefits, then employers who use that program will not be charged. The American Rescue Plan Act extends that federal financing through September. So ultimately, the shorter story is the federal government has been financing shared work benefits since March, and employers were not charged for those benefits through January 8th. And again, from February 8th through at least September 4th, would not be charged for those benefits if they're using the program. Again, this slide deck is being sent to you all, but we've got contact information. Some of these folks are on the phone to answer questions here, but going forward, websites, email addresses, phone numbers, where you can call our rate unit for questions about your tax notice and questions about the voluntary contributions program. And again, key piece of information came in February. That's your revised notice. That's the accurate notice with your tax rate based on SB 5061. Voluntary contributions, key deadline is to apply by the end of the month. And then quarterly taxes are due by April. So your first quarter 2021 taxes with the new rates are due by April 30th. I will stop sharing, and me and the team are happy to take any questions you might have.
All right. I believe the first question we have is about shared work and it being extended for another 12 months. Are the same employees eligible for the extension?
So what the rescue plan did was just continue the federal financing of those benefits so employers won't be charged. I think for the program itself, I think you continually keep folks on the program, definitely, but let me see if Denise has anything to add about people staying on the shared work program and keeping their employers on that program.
Yeah, as long as they have an approved shared work plan, they can keep their employees on their shared work. And they just need to make sure that when their employees are filing their weekly claims that they're designating those weeks as shared work weeks.
So again, nothing's changed with the program. It's just the extension and the recovery or the rescue plan has it so that employers aren't charged through August into September 4th.
And I'll just jump in here too, because I think what Denise said is a really important point for the folks listening to understand is that both the employee and you have to, right, acknowledge that you're using the shared work program. So if you feel like your rates may be inaccurate, a good first step might be to make sure that your employees were also filing for benefits and acknowledging that they're part of the shared work program. It has to be on both sides there.
It seems that a lot of the questions we're having is, with the passage of the Restaurant Recovery Act, could the buy down application deadline be extended for restaurants?
So I think, unfortunately, we are constrained by, and I think the reference is to the $25 billion fund in the recovery plan specifically for restaurants, and I'm not familiar with the details of that. But unfortunately, for the voluntary contributions program, the February 15th deadline we previously had was arbitrary, but the March 31st one is not. So this is as a reminder, unemployment insurance is a federal-state partnership, and what we do needs to remain in conformity with federal requirements, and federal requirements would have it be that March 31st is the deadline for that program. And of course, it'll be available again next year. Go ahead, Lisa, sorry.
No worries. Another question we're getting is, how do our employers deal with employees who refuse their offer of work? What's the next step?
Right. So unemployment insurance claimants are required to accept offers of suitable work, or it sounds like we're talking about returning to work. I do want to acknowledge that there are worksite safety concerns that exist, and I would note that employers are required to maintain a safe worksite, always have been. That's not a new thing, but in the COVID era, that means compliance with COVID rules that are coming from our state health or LNI or federal regulations. All that said, if a employee refuses an offer to work, unless the work site is not safe, or unless that individual is in high risk category and the offer of work is not telework, they need to accept that offer of work. We have a portal on our website that I can share in the chat or afterwards with Julia to share more broadly, through which employers can report when a employee refuses to return to work. That's where that portal is located. Also has a good set of FAQs for workers that I'd suggest that we distribute out. One important thing to keep in mind for our purposes is when an offer of work is extended, it should be kind of quote unquote official. So if you're just calling your employee and offering it, that might not be enough to show what the offer of work was and that it was suitable. So probably something you want to put into writing, because again, suitable work has to be sort of returning to the same conditions and pay that existed before.
And I'll jump in here too and agree with Dan that it should be a formal offer of employment, and we do have a template prepared that that members can use and download when extending an offer for employment.
Okay, the next question is, how many hours a week can someone work but still collect unemployment benefits? I think this is with the shared work question. Would they also still be able to collect federal benefits?
All right. So generally speaking, for basic unemployment insurance, if employees are working but they're at reduced hours, they need to report the wages that they've earned on a week in and week out basis, and a formula is run in which it is determined if they're eligible for less or no benefits. So it's sort of a case by case, if you will. With regard to the shared work program, Denise, you can hop in if you need to, but I think it's 50%.
Yes, they need to work 50%.
And then again, so the federal government is funding those benefits, but it's essentially a reimbursement for the state for benefits that would otherwise be paid out of the trust fund, which is separate and apart from federal programs like pandemic unemployment assistance and pandemic emergency unemployment compensation. And as my colleague Chad noted in the chat, they can reduce hours by 10 to 50%. Employers can to participate in the shared work program.
Can you add employees to shared work now?
Should be able to, yes.
For businesses that have been forced to remain closed due to the phased reopening, like music venues, are there any discussions of expanding the lockdown period until our businesses can reopen? This would impact our experience rating and bring our rates to closer to what they were before the forced shutdown.
So Julia, maybe you want to speak to this one.
So the under the current version of the bill, it waived the benefit charges between March 22nd and May 30th. So it leaves just that 1 month of June for the 2021 rates that benefits were charged, and that bill has passed. So there is likely not an opportunity for anything that occurred in June to be waived. We are talking about continuing the conversation about the time period that will impact your rates for 2022, which is going to be anything after July forward. And so, yes, there is a lot of dialogue and conversation happening right now about what to do for that time period, July through current.
Okay. We have removed a majority of our staff from shared work with the exception of managers. Employees removed are now filing for unemployment due to lack of hours, although they can work all the hours they want. I think this is another, if you have a refusal to work question, can we contest this going forward when we are back to full-time hours of operation?
Yeah.
All right, trying to unpack the question there. So again, for shared work purposes, as Chad pointed out, hours can be reduced 10 to 50%, and you can participate in the shared work program. If hours are obviously if somebody's 100% laid off, they claim unemployment benefits. If somebody is still collecting earnings and claiming unemployment benefits, they need to report earnings, which will ultimately result in either a reduced weekly benefit amount or no unemployment benefits. Again, back to the refusal to work question, whether it's returning to an old job or thinking about your next job, a core requirement of unemployment insurance is that workers be able and available for suitable work. So in this pandemic, there are high-risk populations. So these are individuals who, if they're deemed high risk by the Department of Health or by CDC in that category, need to be able and available for telework, but can otherwise potentially refuse an offer of work. Otherwise, people need to be able and available to return or to accept suitable work, which is work that's comparable with what they had before or what is common in their profession. And again, I think I put in the chat a refusal to work page, which is a good page to explore. It's got the reporting mechanism that I mentioned for refusal to work, but it's also got a pretty in-depth set of FAQs, both for workers and for employers, that are worth perusing to sort of further educate on this issue.
Yeah, and I'll remind everyone, I dropped into the chat, if employees are having issues getting their unemployment or getting into contact with someone, we have a contact that we can put you in touch with. You just need to email shelbyp@wahospitality.org. That's in the chat. And also there's more information about shared work at sharedworkwa.com. That's also in the chat too. One of the questions that's come in is our sales have been down 20-30% of previous year sales. So shared work hasn't worked for us. Anticipating our opening more, can we reapply for shared work as we have more hours available?
I would think so. And we're getting a lot of shared work questions. So I don't know. I know, Chad, you're pretty familiar with the program, or Denise, if anyone has any general further comments beyond just the direct response to questions on shared work, please feel free to chime in.
Yeah, so they can apply at any time for shared work. And then when they get approved, then their employees could participate in the program. And again, you could go to sharedwork.wa.com to get more information.
Okay, what documentation does ESD require as proof the employee refused an offer of work? Do we need to put that in writing also?
And before I pivot to that, let me just back to shared work. As Chad put in the chat, shared work application is good for a year. Employees can go on and off with flexibility of the employer's needs. So great program. Definitely suggest that folks look at the website. An individual named Cheryl Brown, who runs the program, her and her team are available to really answer any questions that you have. Again, the refusal to work page is pretty good detail. The most important thing, per the earlier point, is to make it an offer that's in writing, that's formal. What occurs from there is if we're notified that a UI claimant refused work, an issue is set and fact finding is sent to the claimant. And the claimant has the opportunity to, explain why they refused work. Ultimately, unemployment insurance is a program that's financed by business and provides benefits to workers. And there's sort of a due process fact finding that'll occur on both sides if there's some sort of dispute about refusal to work. But the most important thing, again, is simply rather than just calling and saying, come back to work, you probably want to put something in writing. I'd like to offer you a return to your job, same wages, safe conditions, and that should suffice.
Are there unemployment rates affected by shared work benefits?
So, so long as the federal government is paying for it, now that we have SB 5061 in place, ensuring that employers aren't charged for that, then no. Again, there's this gap in time where the governor's emergency proclamation was not extended by the legislature. And when SB 5061 passed, we've got this roughly month, first week in January to first week in February gap. But otherwise, so long as the feds keep paying for the benefits, employers are not charged. And with the rescue plan, at the moment, that means your non-charged benefits are federally financed through September 4th.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in here too, because we've had a lot of questions from members asking for advice on how to keep their UI rates as low as possible. And just want to continue kind of the cheerleading for the shared work program. I think the association's advice to members would be to get as many of your employees on and using the shared work program as you can. Right now, it's not being charged because the federal government is paying for those benefits. But if that for some reason stops, right, you would still only be charged for the prorated amount, the number of hours that your employees' regular work schedule has been reduced by. So it's just generally a really, really good program if you're trying to mitigate impact to your unemployment insurance rates.
Yeah, that's spot on, Julia. And I realize we're here with our our tax rate discussion and our tax rate team, but we've got a great shared work team. Julie, if a webinar would be helpful on that, I'm sure we'd be happy to do that and help folks sign up, because that advice is spot on. It really is a key way to reduce your UI tax rate if you're able to do it.
Yeah, we have had a shared work webinar in the past, so we can resurrect that one and make sure to
Sure.
make sure it's available on our website. And your website, you popped the link to the shared work site, has a ton of resources that have been extremely helpful.
So is shared work 1 year for the employer or the employee? And what happens after 1 year?
Denise or Chad, are you able to comment on that?
I'm not, but I can see if I can find that out, or if Chad's got the answer, he'll pop it in the chat.
Would it be
Yeah.
so? Would it be appropriate to promote Chad to a panelist so he can jump in?
Oh, is that what the issue is? Yeah, I was wondering what was occurring there. If he was just too shy to speak up. Yeah, if we could do that,
We're not
that'd be
catching
great.
him off guard.
He's got a nice voice too. So.
One moment, we can try and do that. Hang on.
All right. It's Chad Pearson, Pearson.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I used to help with to go out and speak on the program. It's been years, so I apologize. But it is a great program, and I really suggest everyone goes to sharedworkwa.com. You can learn a lot. There's a great video on there that gives you a 2-minute rundown of how the program works. Some of the questions you're asking that have been asked on there. Every year, the employer needs to reapply for the shared work program. There is a limited number of benefit weeks, and it does come out of the employee's total pool of
I think we lost him there for a minute.
I'm back now. Do you hear me?
Sorry
now?
about that.
I was just saying that go to the shared work. Go to the sharedworkwa.com website. There's a 2-minute video that can really help explain the program to you. The question had to do with employers. They need to apply on a yearly basis. And your employees do have a limited amount of benefits, but they're reduced at a slower rate than if they were fully on unemployment benefits. So there is a benefit, there is a positive there. And it's flexible from week to week. You as an employer have the ability to have them at 50% off, 50% 1 week and then 10% 1 week. I believe you have to have 2 employees now, at least in this shared work program. And you can have your whole staff, you can have everyone on it, you can have just a handful on there. So there's a lot of flexibility that works there. And there is a great team, as Dan mentioned, that can give a presentation to you if you'd like to hear it again.
Great. And on March 17th, we surpassed the 1-year mark for our industry of COVID impacts. That was the 1-year anniversary of indoor dining being closed. So a lot of our folks are hitting that the end of that 12-month period. And it's my understanding with shared work, you just have to reapply every 12 months to take part in that program. There's not a dead end date where you can no longer participate in the program. At least that's my understanding.
Yeah, and that's a law change, is my understanding too, since I spoke on it regularly, that now you can be on there for consecutive years, and I'm not sure if there's a limit anymore on the amount of years.
Great.
Okay, I have a question. Is there a way to see all of the employees who are currently receiving benefits from your company? Just to ensure we have offered where we can and reported all refusals and separations correctly.
Denise, can you field that one?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Is there a way to see all of the employees that a business owner has on unemployment, receiving benefits from unemployment, just to ensure they have offered where they can and reported all refusals and separations correctly?
So they quarterly receive a statement of benefit charges that list all of their employees that received benefits during the quarter. And so they would refer to that document to see if they're being charged for people that they should be being charged. If they felt that they've should not be charged, they could it depends on the situation. If they want to ask for relief, they could send in a relief of benefit charges request. If they think it's fraud, they could report the fraud. If they think it's shared work, kind of like we alluded to earlier, ensuring that their employee claimed that week as a shared work week. If their employee does not, they do get charged for it. They can fix that by contacting the agency, but that's one of the things I've found has been one of the things that's happened a lot is that the employee, when they're filing their claim, didn't specify that that was shared work. And so those would be things they would want to check into.
All right, I am hearing that my chats aren't showing up in the chat. It's Shelby's email address is Shelby P as in Paul at wahospitality.org. And we've got about another 10 minutes left on the webinar here. If you want to go ahead and keep typing your questions in.
I think it might be a good transition time to talk about how to apply for relief of benefit charges and what are the qualifying circumstances that would allow you to have a successful application there.
I see Denise sneezed, so let's give her a minute and then maybe she wants to take that one. Denise, the process for requesting relief of benefit charges and what goes into that consideration.
So I was actually going to, before I sneezed, have Janelle speak to that. She's our lead in the rates unit.
Right. Am I unmuted?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So there are currently 8 reasons an employer can qualify for relief of charges. We do require the request be submitted in writing or through e-services. If an employee voluntarily quits and the quit is not attributable to the employer, they can qualify for relief of charges. If there's a discharge due to misconduct or gross misconduct, they can qualify for relief of charges. I'm just running through the most common requests that we get. If an employee was hired as a part-time employee and had concurrent employment and was separated from another base share employer and the employee remains in that part-time employment, the employer can request relief of charges. Those are the 3 main reasons that an employer can request relief of charges. If an employer received relief of charges on a prior claim and there's 2 consecutive claims, the employer can write in and request relief of charges on the second claim, such as a back-to-back claim. I anticipate we'll be seeing some of those as we're coming up on that 1-year mark. There's a couple of others that are not being seen right now. If an employee is hired to replace a military National Guard member, and then that National Guard member comes back to work, and then that temporary employee is laid off. Same with someone who's hired to replace someone out on paid family medical leave, and then that employee, that regular employee, returns. The temporary employee is laid off. Those are the most common. There's a few reasons under WAC 192.150.101 for COVID-related reasons. If an employee tested positive for COVID, there was a quarantine, or if there was COVID experienced in the workplace and the employer had to shut down to clean their business, that type of thing. If you do want more information on what does qualify for relief of charges, you can contact our unit and talk to one of our tax specialists, and we can go over that with you.
Thank you, Janelle. That was great. And Julie, we can send it something in writing or link to the website, or otherwise happy to send information to you and Lisa to disperse out to folks.
Great.
And I have another shared work question. When reapplying for shared work, is it a regular apply, or is there a separate link for reapplying?
Go back to Chad or Denise on that one.
I don't know that answer. I'm sorry.
I don't either.
We'll figure that out after this call and get back to you all.
Okay. If there is any employers out there that have questions for you after this webinar, what is the best way to get in touch with you?
So Lisa, if you want to send out the PowerPoint we shared, we've got on the last slide there, phone numbers, contacts for both rate issues and separate for the voluntary contributions program.
Thank you, Dan. As a reminder, we are recording this and we are going to post the slideshow up on the website with the recording too. So you can find that at hub.wahospitality.org. And if we don't have any more questions, thank you all so much for today's webinar and this information. Dan, any last words?
No, thanks for having us again. We all appreciate the very challenging environment you all are working in. And it's been a pleasure working with Julia, and we're here to continue to answer any questions that you have on any of these UI issues. Our agency is also a partner in the workforce system. As we hopefully start to come out of this and recover, we're a great source in that respect too. And of course, we've got the paid family medical leave program. So any questions that you guys have, obviously UI is front and center, but on any of these issues, we're here to help.
And Julia, any last words?
Yeah, thank you for joining. I hope that this was helpful information for you all, as we've been getting a lot of questions on 2021 rates. And so I think just to recap, the relief that was offered in Senate Bill 5061 did non-charge all benefits between March 22nd and May 30th. So when looking at how to further adjust your rates for 2021, right, I would suggest you spend your time looking at that month of June to make sure those benefit charges are accurate. If you need to appeal or apply for relief of benefit charges, we're coming up on an important date. You have to do that by the end of the month. And then if those do look right, but you're still concerned about any impacts, we have the voluntary contribution program, which we presented on today. So I would kind of walk through those steps. And then of course, moving forward, make sure that you're utilizing the shared work program to the best of your ability. That's going to be a really important program to further reduce impacts to your rates for 2022.